Alrighty, so first of all, I want to congratulate Leon of winning their first ever CONCACAF Champions League title, and they absolutely deserved it because throughout these two legs, they were by far the better team in the first leg. I've thought they probably could have won more than the 2-1 scoreline that they had if they were able to take advantage of their chances. But then again, after the first leg is over, I said that, LAFC maybe dodge a bullet a little bit, and this seems like it's going to be similar to what we saw last year with Seattle, able to dodge a bullet in Mexico, and then they return home and able to win that second leg. But that did not happen this time because LAFC simply didn't show up in this game. I mean, besides the first couple of minutes, it was a very flat performance by LAFC throughout this game to a point where at points of this game, especially in the second half, I thought I was watching Minnesota play against Toronto yesterday with how flat of the performance that LAFC was playing. There was just no urgency on the attacking end, and the passing was absolutely terrible. But again, you got to also give credit to Leon, which I also thought that they play a perfect road game in this one. They got a goal to really kind of silence of what was a party atmosphere at BMO Stadium early in this one, and then they just kind of strangle LAFC for the rest of the game, sitting in that low block, not allowing LAFC any space to attack. And I think Stu Holding even mentioned at one point in this game in the second half where it feels like LAFC was kind of dying a slow death of defeat, and it kind of felt like it because LAFC, they just could not able to find any space to attack and really any chances to really test this Leon backline and even the goalkeeper Colta for them to potentially get the equalizer and really set up a very interesting finishing. Now, early on in the first half, instead of the game being shown, NASCAR was still showing on FS1, and I also wrote thank you Apple TV because before Apple TV basically have the exclusive broadcast for all of these MLS game. Another thing I'm so frustrated with MLS game being on national television, whether it's on the Fox network or on ESPN, is that it feels like both of those networks just simply does not want to put an MLS game over whatever sporting event that was still going or just kind of run a little bit late off the schedule, and then they decide to push it to another network, and it's frustrating because sometimes I had to go to another network, and unfortunately, I don't have that network, and then it just creates a problem. Now, thankfully, I did have FS2, so I basically switched to FS2 for the first couple of games, but that has to frustrate a lot of people. The fact that, yeah, they're all hyped up about this game. Oh, they're still showing a NASCAR race. Yeah, they're. It doesn't seem like Fox really care about the fact that this is literally the biggest game in terms of in terms of this region in MLS and also in Liga MX. And again, you will never have this issue with Apple TV ever again because we know Apple TV, whether games are broadcast nationally or not, they're gonna show the game when the game is started. So yeah, great to see that I don't have to deal with that anymore, except for here because of the fact that Fox does still have the exclusive right of basically broadcasting these CONCACAF Champions League game. Now, I also thought that LAFC must have overdone the pyrotechnics because man, you just cannot see the field for the first 3 minutes. Like there was a lot of smoke that was around, especially near the 3-2-5-2, where it was really hard to see even any of the players that was moving toward the field. But that being said, in the second minute, Bawanga would miss a sitter from close range, and with how hot Denise Bawanga has been, you would expect him to bury that one. Although I will say that he actually didn't take a shot in this one. This was actually a ball that was played in it and was pretty much put on a platter for Bawanga, and he just wasn't able to make contact. Then I think it was maybe a little bit behind him there, but still, with the quality and with how hot of a form that Denise Bawanga has been for this LAFC team, you expect him to bury that one. But there was no doubt that LAFC was in full urgency mode. They were working quickly on the transition, and Leon was definitely scrambling at the back. And it looked like that was going to be the case throughout the game. Little did we know that that would really kind of be the only time we see that urgency, or at least only part of this game. There was actually one spell in in the second half that they kind of show that, but this is really the only time where I thought LAFC were on the front foot and Leon kind of looked like they were on the ropes a little bit. Now, in the fifth minute, there was some early tempers as Palacio and Mena had some choice words. Something tells me that they're not talking about what's the best taco place in LA during that discussion. But I also saw that it looked like there was a second or two of a delay that was on the Fox audio because there's time when John Strong basically talked about something and then just 1 or 2 seconds later that of course does happen. And again, thank you Apple TV for that because I don't see that happen with these Apple TV games broadcasting these MLS game. Eventually they did fix it when the game was switched over to FS1, but man, that has to be very frustrating when that, of course, has happened to a point where I was thinking about just muting the stream and just watch the game on mute, which that doesn't feel like enjoyable, especially with how big this game is. Now in the 11th minute, Long did headset wide from close range before Palacios. Again, he was involved of another spat this time with Barrero as they got in each other's faces. Now Barrero basically did a classic Liga MX kind of thing, and that, of course, he decided to go down and hold his face, despite the fact that Palacio made no contact of him. And honestly, it was kind of hilarious to see that, but at the same time, it was kind of stupid the fact that Barrero decided to do that right in front of the referee. And unsurprisingly, both Palacio and Barrero, of course, gets a yellow card there. Palacio, of course, gets the yellow card for instigation, and then Barrero basically gets the yellow card for obvious embellishment. I mean, when the referee's right in front of you, and I know this is CONCACAF, and I know no CCL referee tends to get a bad rep. Though I thought this referee today, I thought he did a really good job in terms of controlling the temper and really stamp his authority by showing those yellow cards. And yeah, it was pretty obvious that he was gonna be booked there like that. Of some of the most dumbest thing you can do on a soccer pitch, don't embellish when you're right in front of the referee because what do you think that's gonna get you? Yeah, it's probably gonna get you a yellow card. But yeah, either way, 2 minutes later, we saw the opening goal of the game, and it turns out to be the only goal of the game as Dioro would score for Moreno to give LAFC a 1-0, or not LAFC, but Leon a 1-0 lead, and it was just not great defending from LAFC. Like they got caught out on that transitional play. But at the same time, McCarthy, I know John McCarthy makes some big save for LAFC in the last game, but man, this one he does not want to look this one back because yeah, this was a weak shot there from Deer that I think McCarthy absolutely should have saved. Like if he can pull off some great save in the last game, that's one that he's got to do much better. So yeah, that gave Leon a 1-0 lead, and now all of a sudden LAFC not only have to win the game, but now they have to score 2 goals. But again, this is something similar kind of territory to the last time they play against Leon in the CCL, down 2 goals. They just need those 2 goals and need three to win this CONCACAF Champions League tie. Though in the 21st minute, Villa almost made it 2-0, but he pulls it wide after just a turnover from LAFC. And I thought LAFC kind of looked rattled because all of a sudden Leon was going on the other end on the transition. De Villa then had another opportunity in the 25th minute, but he pulls it wide again, and you can hear the Leon chant was started to ring out from the fans wearing green. By the way, there was definitely a good fair amount of Leon fans. I mean, obviously, I would say it still was about 80% of them wearing the black and gold inside BMO Stadium, but there was definitely some green spatter around the stadium, and especially in the away supporter stands, and they were definitely loud throughout this game, especially near the end of this one. Boanga then blasts one into the stands before he had a free kick that actually took a deflection that goes right to Kota, almost very similar to the Kellen Acosta goal in the MLS Cup final against the Union, where it was a deflected goal that went in, but unfortunately, Boanga doesn't have the same luck. Tassilo then heads it right to McCarthy, and while the attack I thought was kind of looking promising for LAFC, defensively it was become a liability for this team because one of the things that they also mentioned is that Steve Cherundolo decided to switch the formation. I think they went 5 at the back in this one, and again, I think anytime when you decide to switch a formation, and I said this when Minnesota play against Sporting KC, where I know Adrian he basically switched a formation that the players weren't kind of familiar with, and I have a feeling it seems like it's the same case for Steve Cherundolo when he decided to switch the formation. Don't do that. Like, don't switch the formation just because you maybe want to throw the opposition off a little bit. Because more times or not, that's just not going to work, and more times or not, your players are just kind of getting confused in terms of how to use the formation well. And you can clearly see that there's times that this LAFC team they just kind of look lost with that formation, and at the back they just it just feels like they weren't comfortable with the system, and that you can see there was just so much space for Leon to expose whenever they go on the transition. Though Acosta did fires it wide from long range in the 41st minute, and then we head to halftime with Leon leading 1-0. Now in the second half, Vela would hit the wall on the free kick. Yeah, this was a disastrous game for Carlos Vela, and again, there's gonna be a lot of questions that's gonna be asked with Carlos Vela, and that again he just have not looked the same ever since that injury. Whether you like it to admit or not, he just hasn't really made as big of an impact for this LAFC team as we see before. And again, a lot of that maybe has to do with the fact that we see players when they get injured a lot, which Vela has some injury woes throughout the last couple of years. It's going to take a toll on his body, and you just wonder if that is going to be the case. And it also doesn't help that he is starting to get a little older too. But you also can just a sense that LAFC need to score soon, because they did kind of switch back to their usual formation, because Leon was just kind of doing their typical Liga MX shithouse, trying to waste as much time as possible, and they were just sitting deeper and deeper in that bunker to a point where it was even with the quality that LAFC has had. I just wonder with the way that they at that this point that they've been defended so well that LAFC just simply cannot not crack it. But 10 minutes in, that kind of shows the case, because they just look flat on the attack. There was no urgency that was showing whatsoever. The Ole chant did broke out from some of the Leon fans, and that's when you know that yeah, things are definitely not going well for LAFC in this one. And to give you more evidence that things are not going well, the frustration was starting to show on this LAFC team. Like the players, they were getting very frustrated. They just cannot string any passes. And again, this is where I bring back the Minnesota kind of comparison in the game against Toronto that I'll talk about tomorrow, where yeah, the passing was absolutely awful. They just cannot string any passes. It just does not look like I was watching an LAFC team, and also not to mention keep turning the ball over in the midfield. Long then hits it all onto the roof of the net. And on that play, there was a nasty head-and-head collision between him and one of the Leon player. And in typical Fox fashion, they decided to show the injury, and they also make sure to show how bad the injury is, because why not? In a very kid-friendly world, why not show Aaron Long just getting all bloody up like that? Because that's the way we want to give some of the audience in terms of showing what how ugly that is. I mean, honestly, all kidding aside, I don't know why we see that this happen. Like this happens all the time, not just in MLS, but even in other sports where you don't really need to show that injury. Like we know it's very nasty. There's no need to show it a couple of times or show it multiple times to a point where yeah, I think I need to look away. And there was time where I was kind of thinking like, can they stop showing Aaron Long bleeding hard? Like we get it, he's bleeding. You don't need to show the blood and all that is going on. Now another thing that I've also brought up is that LAFC also use all of their subs, but the good news is it looks like CONCACAF did introduce the concussion substitution role, so LAFC was fair of going down to 10 men. They were able to get a 6 sub, and Maldonado did replace Aaron Long uh, because of the injury. I mean, it was pretty obvious that that has to be, because there was no way Aaron Long was continue having that. And really, as the time winds down, I just feel like it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen for LAFC. They just continue to look very flat on the attack. And Leon, to their credit, not only defending well, but they decided to go peak shit housery, trying to waste as much time as possible. And, in the past, I would get very annoyed with that. But nowadays, I just find it entertaining, and also I just find it that's like as a fan that maybe we are rooting for a team that is time wasting. It can be very frustrating to a point where you can definitely be mad about it, but I can also understand why teams do that. They want to slow the game down, and again, Liga MX's team, like you, when you're of course down two goals, with about 20 or 15 minutes to go, yeah, you basically are going to have to deal with that, whether if if LAFC like it or not. And again, Leon really gone hard with the shit house. A bunch of players were lying on the ground. Bunch of players that was trying to slow things up whenever they get a throw in or a free kick. Though in the 79th minute, Opoku was in on goal, but he doesn't connect that one well. I thought Maha Opoku was probably the best attacking player for this C team. But he had another chance in the 80th minute, but he hits the side netting there, and it fooled everybody. Like the fans were celebrating, even the score operator was fooled. Like it literally said "Go LAFC" when that one hits the side netting, but nope, it actually hits the side netting there. But I thought LAFC finally started to show some urgency that they kind of been missing throughout this entire game. But the question is, can they get one back? Spoiler alert, they didn't. We do get 10 minute of stoppage time because again there was a lot of stoppage in the second half, partially of all the shithousery that was going on, and also with a lot of injuries and a lot of stop and go action. And then Davia actually went in on go and was actually brought down by Maldonado, but the offside flag went up. Now I didn't really get a good look at it, but it definitely didn't look like that was offside. It definitely looked like Davia was in an onside position. And again, Maldonado, you can clearly see he brought down Davia. Like that absolutely would have been a penalty if the flag did not go up. But yeah, the flag did go up. We'll never know whether or not if that was offside or not. I mean, if this game was close, I would think that they would actually look at it. But because it wasn't close, they just let that one go and keep the game going. And then Tillman had a free header there in the fourth minute of stoppage time, but he hits it right to Kota. I mean, that shot basically summarized LAFC. And as the time winds down, you can see some of the fans for LAFC, they were heading toward the exit. The Leon fans were in full voice because they know what's coming. Their team is about to win their first ever CONCACAF Champions League title, and that's exactly what happened. 1-0 win in this one, 3-1 over the aggregate score. As the shots in this one, LAFC doubled the shot, 14 shots compared to 7 that Leon has, but only 3 of them was on goal compared to 2 that Leon has, and none of them really troubled the Leon netminder Kota. 8 shots off target for the 3 that Leon has, 2 shots that was blocked for the 3 that LAFC had, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that Leon has in this game. And again, overall, very disappointing game for LAFC, and that again, they just simply didn't show up in this one, and that now it's going to be interesting to see how the mindset is going to be with this team, because this was really it. Like I really feel like I mean, it's going to be interesting thing to see what the talk is going to be after this one. And then I know there's going to be people that say, well, which one is going to be more heartbreaking? Is it this one or the one against Tigres? I would say both of them kind of is equally as heartbreaking. I would say maybe this one maybe a little bit more, or although you can definitely make the case because in that game against Tigres, even though there was no fans in the stands, they were LAFC had the lead in that one and they let it slip. This one felt like it was just kind of just a game where they just kind of didn't show up and they were just kind of beaten by the better team. Though you can also argue that this is at home, and to put a flat performance like that at home is just very un LAFC like. But either way, no. Whether if you make the comparison of whether this is more painful than the time when they lost to Tigres in the CCL final, either way, the same result is. LAFC just cannot conquer that mountain that we saw Seattle did. And this is also where I'm going to throw the classic cliche of why this game is a game of inches. Because, have Bawanga actually convert that opportunity in the second minute, maybe we could have seen a different game. Because LAFC would have had the momentum. Leon would be feel like, oh, here we go again. This is like what happened a couple of years ago. But again, that first goal by Leon, that was just so crucial to a point where I was interested to see how the mindset was going to be for this LAFC team. Can they, of course, respond? And they just never did. But again, full credit has to be with Leon. And again, they really just play a perfect role game in this one to win the title. But yeah, this is gonna be now interesting as the other thing I also want to mention is the fact that now it should set up a very interesting situation when we get to the League Cup, because when we get to the League Cup, there's this all this talks about Liga MX's team versus MLS team, and it feel like in this CCL it kind of sets it up perfectly with those two semifinal being all MLS semifinal, and on the other end all Liga MX semifinal, and this was kind of the moment of the truth again. I'm going to be interesting to see once we get to the League Cup, because again, in some way, this is good for the region, and especially good for whoever promote the League Cup. That yeah, we're gonna see more of that once we get to the League Cup in about a month and a half time. But again, disappointing night in MLS. I'm not gonna say that this is a night where where MLS has started to fall back in terms of the gap that they have with LAFC. I do think that they have definitely made significant gap in terms of closing with Liga MX, but tonight is definitely not one of them. I think that gap is kind of just stay put. And that again, it should be very interesting to see when we get to the League Cup, and that I think I'm excited to see how it's going to be. Like I know a couple of years I said that I'm not excited about the League Cup and all the thing of the fact that it feels like it's maybe just being a bit of a money grab, but knowing the fact that the League Cup there are still some things to play for, not just a trophy but also a berth in terms of the next edition of CCL. It should be very interesting to see once we get to the League Cup in a month and a half. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at this game. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this game? And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.